All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission for Monday, April 8th. We will start with our roll call. Carrie Stuckey, that's me, I'm here. Shane emailed us that he will not be able to make it today. Kate Rose. Here. Eric Dipzinski.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
Stefania Huerta.
Here.
And Vicky Briggs. Biggs.
Here.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Biggs. All right, and Councilmember Marshall. All right. Okay, so then we'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as written.
Okay, all in favor? All
Aye.
right. The agenda is approved. Then we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for our meeting on March 11th. Is there any
I'll make a
question?
motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Okay. All right, then we will move on to public comment. Mikhail, did we have one public comment?
I do have some public comment I can share with you. Hold on a second. I have a few more than that. Let's see what you got.
I did. He said, "Can you write that?" I don't want to. Yes, yes, exactly. So we're good now, right? I made sure to put a 4 in there so you knew that was April. That was me. I told him, I was like, I want to make sure we don't have.
So I know we had two come in from the online form. So this one is about the community center's park and rec. And this one wasn't included in your packet because it was received. Do you want us to read them? Director? Yeah. Okay. So this one is from Rebecca White. It says, "Hello, I recently attended a city council meeting that highlighted a lot of great things to come from our local parks and rec departments. I remember overhearing discussion of a community center next to the pool, which I think sound phenomenal. I did want to reach out and express support in maintaining the skate park that is near that location. I have no idea how another building in that space would impact the skate park, but I do hope that removing the skate park is not a consideration. The skate park provides an opportunity for people of ages to stay active, and for many has helped them maintain their sobriety. Also in the event there is grant money could be spread elsewhere. I hope the skate park can be considered for improvements such as benches for parents. Thank you for your time."
Did you have another one, Mikhail?
This one came in after the packet was distributed. Anthony Cordova. Regarding Vista Heights Parks. Vista Heights Parks is a small neighborhood park located on southwest Vista Park Drive. The park is located within a neighborhood that contains a zip line type of structure and a 2-person swing set and a metal frame climbing structure. From my time living in the neighborhood, it has rarely been used due to its size and the age group it has been built for. I would like to formally request the Parks and Rec Department come to the park and conduct a survey to, 1, replace the weathered structures and update them with newer, more age-inclusive structures, and 2, expand the play area within the grounds so families can have more to do in the neighborhood and children can socialize. And Brian, if you have any more?
Yeah. All right, I'll skip the one from Anthony. Those already read. This is from Christina Elliott. Hello, I am interested in finding out the process for renaming a city park, specifically the Ruth Cohen Memorial Park located in Shannon Forest neighborhood. Other than being in the right place at the right time, it's not clear why this park is named as such, and it does not accurately reflect the heritage or spirit of the island. That's one from Anthony. This one is from Dahlia Pierce. Would like to see dual wheelchair swing that faces each other put into the design of the accessible playground. They're expensive, but would be willing to help raise funds for it. Also want wheelchair access to the beach and beach wheelchairs. Spoke with the county and they are putting in accessible access to the water in some of the other towns on Whidbey and planning to do the same in Oak Harbor. There is a group that would like to come and support the playground project and give input when you are at that point. This is one from Bill Weisenheimer. This one was not copied for the Parks and Recreation Commission, but I thought I'd go ahead and share it with you. I understand that the Creative Arts Foundation is having a coming out of sorts at tonight's council meeting. I hope that you will come them to our city and can find ways to leverage their energy to further utilize our community. Communities need places for public to commune, to come together and enjoy experiences, exchange ideas, and celebrate achievements together. Just like so many small cities, Oak Harbor has few places for people to gather for entertainment and celebration. Instead, we sit in isolation, entertained by screens and starving for social interaction. Oak Harbor would benefit from a performing arts and gathering space, both culturally and economically. The motivated members of the Creative Arts Foundation want to stimulate planning and fundraising to bring such a space to our city, and I hope you will share their vision to make Oak Harbor not just an adequate place to live, but a culturally vibrant community. Let's see, this is from Rebecca White. Was this the one did you already read this one? Yeah, okay, I'll skip that one. And then we had a comment for addressing the standing water along the trail next to Fred Marsh. They gave some just some feedback and help and had talked with Steve Schuler, our Public Works Director, on what we can do to address that. I know Brandon's working on that now. That's, I think, all I have for public comment.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions, comments? Okay.
Do these all get answered, and by whom?
Yeah, I have talked with, I usually call back most of the people that have a direct question. If they can put on the form whether they would like to be contacted or not, and in what way, email or call. Yeah, and I'll usually, especially the ones that want to call back, I'll give them a call. But
Okay. Any other questions?
I think, yeah, I have some questions. I think we have a pocket park problem, which we've kind of spoke about. And I don't know what the approach is in evaluating those, or if we really have an approach. Carrie and I were sort of talking off mic just real quick about how, like, that one looks like it actually has newer, Harbor Vista Park, looks like it has newer equipment compared to some of the other pocket parks. So we were laughing about how feeling it's old. But do we do demographic surveys of the area? Do we have any information? I mean, when they're set up in such a way for typically families with young children, do we know how many are actually in those areas? And do we have expectations based on those kinds of things to figure out how we program or reprogram or repurpose parks, especially hopefully to decrease our maintenance threshold on a lot of these pocket parks, which are sort of maintenance heavy given the square footage that they take up? I got a lot of questions around those, and this highlights it, which is nice. Skate park, I sort of feel like is a pocket park too. And do we have the same vein, do we have information about longevity, lifespan, maintenance, improvements to that? Again, user counts. Do we have anything in mind? And maybe that's part of our master plan conversation, but how do we really track these things to better allocate our resources? I like the comments because they bring this stuff up for a question, but I'm sure you have a plan, Brian. You have thought about most everything twice. So, and then the other thing is, when we get a renaming request, what do we do with that? How do we approach that? That's, my first time seeing something like that. I know that renaming things is a very in vogue sort of thing to do these days, and for good and other reasons. But I'd certainly love to know what the process is for that, or do we have a process for renaming a park, and for what reasons?
Yeah. You want me to speak to your second question, or you want me to go back to the first?
You're the boss. You start where you want to start.
As far as I'm aware, the city has not done like park-specific demographic information. Before the creation of the new Parks and Recreation Department, obviously, some of our community needs assessment will pull that data when we do a Parks and Recreation Master Plan this year. So another thing that we're looking at doing is their trail counters to help us get a better idea of use of each of the parks, and then outside of survey and needs assessments, we'll get that demographic data, and that's part of why we have our committees too, to talk about that. As far as naming of parks, so we went through the process of naming Explorer Park last year as part of Arbor Day celebration with Broadview. Thank you. Yeah, and we're doing the same thing this year as well with the Oak Harbor Elementary School Arbor Day celebration. We're going to be doing a similar competition with the kids to name the Harbor Heights property. That's a non-official designation used by staff to identify the area, but we're going with an official designation. I think it's good timing with the development of the trails and the disc golf course up there, and kind of opening it for public use. So we'll kind of do that all together. The naming process is something that is done at city council level, usually with a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission for that. As far as renaming of things, it would start with a discussion with you guys. That needs to be something that's carefully considered when right now there's development plans for the Hal Ramley Park, which we've talked about, and we've already gotten some public comment around that with concern about removing that park that was done in memorial of Hal Ramley, who was a resident of Oak Harbor and a arborist, and had done a lot for the beautification of the community. So a lot of these parks that are named after someone, is kind of an in memorial. Now we do have a memorial policy for usually amenities within the parks, like a bench or something like that, right? We're going to be doing revisions to that. We're working on that right now. That has a term for that. So after 10 years, we contact the family or the contact that placed that memorial, and they have an option to renew that with a small maintenance fee that helps us upkeep those amenities. And if that's not renewed, then that site opens up for someone else to place a new memorial. This just makes sense to have a policy like that, because after a while you get built out and you start looking like a graveyard if you have too many memorials around, right? Parks are a little more, have a little longer useful life, I guess, as far as a naming of a place like that. There's usually quite a bit of history behind why a park was named after a person. So there just needs to be probably some digging into the background of why the park was named, a little bit about who that person was, and we can help the commission kind of give all that information to you so you can have an informed discussion about it. And then if you have a recommendation for council of, yes, you know what, this makes sense, we want to rename it, not just for the sake of renaming it because we don't remember who the person was that was named after, but there's another cause or a person or a reason that supersedes that we feel like there's a higher use for that naming of that park than there was, for this that was named 100 years ago that isn't relevant anymore. Right?
In regards to that, hopefully it's a reason also could help offset some of the maintenance cost, if you know what I mean, to take place of that. Otherwise, I don't know if that's always in our best interest. I think it would be advantageous, though, to have historical write-ups about some of the names of this park, something that we can work towards for some of the naming conventions for a lot of this stuff, because we do have a community that turns over a lot of what's not said. It becomes unknown, becomes legend, becomes obscure, and we would, we have our park inventory online, but it's really skeletal. And while I know that's in the plans to sort of, I think, upgrade that, it might be nice to provide some historical context for some of these things, as well as like park inception dates. So when people say that a park is antiquated, but it actually maybe just doesn't appeal to them in its visual aesthetic, but they find out that it's only 5 years old, or they find out that it's 105 years old, and that's why it looks bad, or it looks weathered, antiqued. Rustic, shabby chic. I don't know what the word is. And then the other thing, have we explored it all, like digital check-in at parks, QR codes, stuff that we can easily tag to get check-in? I mean, in the meantime, have we thought about just the old school, like trailhead logbooks? People actually still use those things at a lot of places, museums, parks, just to simply try to catch some data, but also maybe thinking about a technological way that we can simply scan a QR code and check in, or people can scan a QR code and say who was there and using it and when, so we can gather some data. It won't be complete, but also, like, people won't go over necessarily at a pocket park and go step on a counter either, or some of those things could be tied right onto existing signage and give us another ability to catch some data. So we actually have something really to work with rather than neighborhood speculation and sort of anecdotal data, which usually is a matter of more of opinion and recency bias than it necessarily is of actual data. Anyway, I think these are all really great public comments, though, because they get to a whole bunch of things that we can really work to improve quality of life. So I think that some of the more exciting or public comments that I've seen in a while. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to item 5. Our first discussion item is the appointment of student member and discussion of future meeting dates.
I'll present from the microphone. Mikhail Finkel. In your packet, there was an application from Nolan Saltonstall. You may remember Nolan. He was part of the Mr. Oak Harbor group that presented to you several months back. He's been attending city council meetings since that time, giving updates on their community service project. He's not able to be here today because he is a high school student and he's in school. I reached out to him about what his schedule would be for attending meetings. Because he has sports and clubs after school, the best time for him would be a 6 p.m. meeting. But he would, if we come up with a different time, we can let him know he might be able to miss some of those activities, once a month to attend the meeting. He definitely said anything before 3 p.m. on a Tuesday he cannot make. So, I don't know.
Okay, go ahead, Kate.
So I think it would be a really great idea if we could do whatever is needed to accommodate high school students, especially juniors or seniors. I've been on other committees where that's been the case. It has required an evening meeting, but they do have so much value. They offer a lot. And actually, that also allows folks that work and older adults that work and wouldn't otherwise be able to be involved. It gives a great opportunity to create a more diverse group. So I'm in favor myself of an evening meeting, and 6 o'clock would be fine with me. I know it's not popular, but I'm definitely willing to do it.
I do have some concerns with the 6 p.m. time, but that being said, Is there any way we could maybe work with the school? I know when I was in high school, if there were community service things, there was the opportunity to miss. I mean, it's an hour and a half once a month. A lot of times schools will be willing to work with that kind of thing. So I don't know if that's an option. It's just a thought. Did you?
Yeah, I mean, as a parent of 4 young kids, that time is typically reserved for engaging with them. It's really difficult. One of the things I liked about this actually opportunity is I could adjust my work schedule in order to do it, which is less of a priority to me than my children. And I'm able to have more flexibility that way. So it's really difficult for me. I'd love to have somebody from the high school involved. I'd like to try to see if we can figure out a creative way to do that. I mean, I'm willing to be as flexible as possible, but also knowing that that might compromise some of my availability too, but I'll do what I can.
Thank you. So I'm with Mary. You know, I think if we want to have a high schooler, we have to be able to potentially meet after high school hours. And Nolan is a fantastic young man. He's been attending city council meetings, as Mikhail said, and he's been very much engaged. He's actually asked how to access the packets so he can read the packets ahead of time. I mean, I think he'd be a tremendous addition to this commission, and you know, I support his application and hope we can find a way to make it work for him.
I would agree. I think he's a great candidate. I would like to see him involved. I'm just a little concerned about the scheduling for us with small kids. So, was there any other comments about that? Yeah.
I would have to say that I actually agree as well for the 6 o'clock time. And I have a small child and I coach softball. And it's a bit of a twist for me, getting dinner ready and whatnot. However, I agree that it really allows a different demographic to get here and be able to be present and to speak and just have their presence be seen. And it shows that we're kind of putting our eyes to the side for the community, which I think is a really important thing as well. So that's my take on it.
If there was a possibility of working out with his school schedule, I would offer my services of transportation to pick him up and drop him back off if that would be of any help, just to limit his time away from school.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Do we need to take action on this at all? or-
If you want to appoint him, I would need a motion by the board to do that. I can also go back with him and see his schedule. I know most of your schedules, so if there's a way we can work it out, maybe an afternoon meeting where he could, with his school schedule or something earlier, I could go back.
So I did speak with Nolan at the last council meeting, and he said that he could probably make like a 4 o'clock time work. If we were doing once a month, he could make access to that. I mean, asking him to leave school when we're not going to be as flexible to leave our families and stuff is not really a fair ask, in my opinion. So if we could compromise and perhaps see if he can make a 4 o'clock time, I think that would work out best. Perhaps, I don't know about everybody else's schedule, but anytime I got to miss work is difficult. So I would recommend that we try to do perhaps 4 o'clock, see if that works for him, and hopefully that would work for y'all as well. So.
A 4 o'clock would be better for me. I don't know if that would be better for anybody else.
4 o'clock would be better for me as well.
I will just put in that the Marina Advisory Commission meets from 3 to 5 on the same day that you have your commission. So if you're going to move it to an afternoon, we would need you to change the week that you're doing that, if you want to keep it on Monday.
Or we could move it to a different day of the week.
True.
Okay. Are there any thoughts?
As long as it's not a city council
Right.
Tuesday or a workshop Wednesday, and our commission is on Thursday
So
of
no.
of the same week that you do yours. So
It sounds like there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I think we should probably examine all the things. I mean, obviously Nolan is a great candidate for this, and I'd be hard pressed to think we're going to find a better one. But I think we should probably look at all the ways in which we're going to have to find a new slot for this time to make that work. We have some flexibility on time, as Councilmember Marshall just said, so that 4 o'clock window, I mean, that sounds great. Maybe we should look around, or if we can get a calendar up real quick. I just making an ad hoc change.
Second Tuesdays are clear.
Okay. We found it.
Yes.
Tuesdays
But
at
he
4 actually
specifically
work
said on the
well.
second Tuesday.
Oh.
Well, he says anything before 3, so I could ask him for 4 o'clock on the second Tuesday, if that works. So it'd be, like, you'd be meeting.
That would be possible for me.
I just want to say this as an example of how our personal lives might have to be considered in light of the benefit of community. I have a standing date with my autistic son Tuesdays at 4:30 for dinner at El Cazador. And again, he's autistic, so it's pretty set in stone. However, I'm sure that given enough lead time, he'd be willing to change it. But I just think we probably all have those things, so.
I would recommend first Monday perhaps, because I think second Tuesday is planning commission, is it not? Yeah, and so maybe just going from second Monday to first Monday.
Or can move to
Yeah.
the third Monday. Yeah, Barbara, did you?
Well, you don't know. I'm Barbara Arms, I'm the council member. My idea is talking to the school and saying, you know, what our time is, and seeing if they won't give it like community service. And if they gave him credit for community service and allowed him to be out once a month for 2 hours, which would accommodate everybody, and then he could get community service for doing something like that, which would give him credits, which would be great on a resume for later. Instead of everybody trying to jockey, why don't we see if we can engage the school to do community service? You know, and they've got him with the royalty, and we've got all that, so why don't we use that? That's what I think would be a great idea for the community.
And one thought I just had, there's 2 months left to school. So we got the May and the June meeting would be a school, and then August and September would not be, so maybe.
So with a student board member, how long would he be on the board? Are we looking at throughout this calendar year or the school year?
The appointments go through September, I believe the code was written. They're 1-year terms, but they can be reappointed as many times
Sure.
as they're interested. So if they started as a sophomore, you know, they could, if the board allowed, serve up to 3. So,
Is he a junior or senior? Oh, okay. So really, we're looking at 2 meetings that we would, and then we could possibly change back to this time? Depending on
what the next student is.
No. It just shows how complex scheduling is. Obviously, there's value there. It's also 2 meetings. I don't know. Nolan's a great guy. Made a great impression on me. There's value there. This is just all the entanglements are kind of hilarious at this point. But it would be great to see if we get him in some meetings and get some input while we have the availability of him as a resource.
Can we, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think really honoring the time that he's requesting will show tremendous value in him as a person. If it's for 2 months, maybe we can crock pot some things and get our family situated, and then that can allow him to really be present and then anybody else to be present.
So did we say first Monday at 4 was available?
Yes.
Yeah, council's the first and third Tuesday, so there's not much on Monday evenings.
If Nolan can't get any availability from schools, then maybe we should try for the first Monday at 4 for the next 2 months.
Yeah,
And then revisit that, the summer comes along.
I would say my first choice would be to possibly contact the school, but if that's not an option, Monday at 4 o'clock seems to be the time that would be best for everybody. So can we go ahead and confirm him and then work out the scheduling?
Yes.
Okay.
So we just need a
motion.
to appoint him as the student member.
Is that a conditional motion, just in case those times don't work? But I mean, assuming that it can't work, you can reject that, right? Okay, well then I make the motion to appoint Nolan as a student member of the Parks and Rec Advisory Commission.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes.
Mikhail, do you need a motion for change of date for the meeting?
Yeah, let's, because it's in the code, so, yeah, let's just do it.
I'll make a motion to move the meeting until first Monday of the month at 4 p.m. for May and June.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All right, we'll go ahead and
That'll make the next meeting Monday, May 6th.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to item B, Windjammer Park Lagoon Dock.
Okay, so this was going to be a discussion and action item. I'm changing it to an update while we're getting some more information, so I'll just give you a brief update on it. So the Windjammer Park Lagoon, we got feedback, a response back from the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Army Corps for additional permitting that might be required for it. One of it is a Salish coastal permit, and another one is an Endangered Species Act permit, which kicks it up to a federal permitting level. This is going to extend out the time to get everything in line for the lagoon dock. But it did give us pause, and we had an internal meeting about this project, and we took kind of a closer look at it. So this is one of those projects, like several that we have, that I came in last year, and the project was supposedly at the end of getting ready to be installed. So when I came in, I was told, oh yeah, we're just finishing up permitting. Found out it's going to be a little longer. Okay, well, we'll look at next year, which is now this year, for installation. And so now we find out, okay, it's probably going to be a whole another year. But so as we kind of dissected it a little bit, and I mentioned this to council at the workshop, you know, this is one of those projects that was sort of jumped into without a lot of planning or strategy and what's going to be needed, and really looking at the cost of it. So we have, and it's a little messy, we have a situation here where we applied for a grant for $50,000. It was a T-Mobile grant, and that grant was used for the purchase and the professional service agreement with Evans Marine Solutions for the purchase of an Easy Dock. It's a prefabricated dock. It's a float dock, so it actually sits on the water, and to replace the current dock at the lagoon, which you know, there was an opinion that it was coming to the end of its life. We were doing a lot of maintenance with it, so looking to replace that with a new dock. It seems like a good project to do. The contract was executed. It included demo of the existing dock and installation of the new dock, as well as the purchase. Because of the terms with the grant, the city went ahead and moved forward and actually has already paid Evans Marine Solution for the dock, for materials, for the demo installation and installation. Well, so looking closer at that, there isn't really a site plan. Engineering tried to get some more schematic structural details on the current dock for their permitting. We didn't get a lot of that was, you know, very detailed. Evans Marine Solutions puts in docks, you know, throughout the state, and they, you know, not that they're casual in their conversation about it, but, you know, we do this all the time. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But looking closer at it and what is involved with any kind of work on the shoreline, which the lagoon is considered shoreline, even though it's a man-made body of water, I have concerns. I have very serious concerns. Concerns that we probably need to have a discussion about before this project goes forward. One of the concerns, and it's not the permitting. I'm patient. I don't mind waiting a year. I think we just need to have good communication. If there's expectations from the public, why isn't this project happening yet? We were told this would get done a year ago. We're now going into our 3rd year with this in the permitting phase. That's fine. We can take care of that. My concerns are around the actual cost of this project. I'm very suspicious that for $7,000 we can demo a dock with pilings in this area and install a new dock with all the grading and access to the existing pathway as is. I don't even think I could get the equipment to do that for that amount of money. So we have a meeting scheduled with Evans. I've reached out a few times by email. He'll only call me back. I don't know if he doesn't want anything documented or what, but and he put tentative as a meeting, but I'm going to keep hounding him until we get a sit down face to face, because I'd like to hear very specifically what the plans are and the scope of what we've already paid for the demolition and installation of this new dock. So that's the first concern, is can you really demolish the existing dock and install a new dock for what they had in the scope and what we paid them to do? Now, according to the agreement, they have to do that to the price. What makes me a little concerned is this keeps drawing out. We keep doing extensions to the agreement. We recently did an extension, another 6-month extension of the agreement, which I already know is now going to have to be extended at least another 6 months for the permitting. The other concern is the type of dock it is. So we're replacing the pretty robust piling dock that sits above the water with a floating dock. Easy fabricated dock, great docks. Usually you find them in like lakes and things like that. One of my concerns is that this is a floating dock on dark water, which presents a safety concern for me instead of a elevated dock, right? So that's something that we want to look at and understand a little bit better. The other is, how robust is this dock? As we're seeing, the permitting to replace the dock is years long. And if this new dock is going to have a life expectancy less than what maybe renovating the existing dock would have, then I don't know if that's worth the pain and cost of us doing. So it's something that we want to understand as well. The other consideration with all this is apparently anything we do with the dock, even if Brandon goes out and replaces some boards on the existing dock, requires at least a exemption from a substantial shoreline improvement permit. So we're kind of getting regulated to death with all these projects. But there's questions. There's some serious questions. It probably should have been asked before we jumped in this project. So I'm going to get as many answers as I can and then bring it back to you guys for a recommendation. My real question is, should this project happen? Should it go forward? The problem is that we have our hands a little bit tied in that we've accepted a grant. We have paid a contractor with that money from the grant already for delivery of goods and services. So that puts us in a strange situation. So I just want to put that on your radar. Like I said, just an update for now. When I have some solid answers and some numbers and information that we can make an informed decision about, we'll bring this back as an action item and recommendation to council. And maybe it's going to be fine. And we are getting a professional structural assessment of the current dock done, so we know exactly what is it we have, does it make sense or not? Is there a good cost benefit to actually replacing the dock or not? And what are the issues with doing that? So once we have all that, we'll bring it back to you. Yes?
What's the value of actually keeping the dock and replacing it versus removing it if it's in such a state of if it's derelict. We've had a lot of comment about people wanting to have better access to it, larger beach area, some of these types of things. If the permitting, which sounds like permitting could be even more expensive than the project at the quoted rate, a lot of costs associated with that. Is it possible to do? What would we lose, and how big of a fire would we cause if we just considered or explored or even executed an option of just removing it, or removing it for the time being, and doing some of the investing resources into those other improvements for quality of life and access to the lagoon
Without replacing it, you mean?
without replacing it? Yeah.
So even removing structures requires permitting. Yeah.
And that would cause some issues with the grant situation, wouldn't?
Right, we got to figure out that as well.
It'd be better to lose grant money and some other things that way, but it doesn't really matter if we have to do the permits anyway. So what if we build a sandbar completely around that dock and then take it out? No, I'm just kidding.
And there has been, to your point, there has been several public comments, both to this commission, council, about wanting to not necessarily extend the scope of this project, but to do improvements around the lagoon. And that's definitely something I agree with, especially things that provide better accessibility. We would just handle that as a different project, not going to complicate this one any more than it is.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that item? Okay, all right, thank you. So let's go ahead and move on to item C, Windjammer Park Ball Field renovations.
All right, I'll let Brandon take this one.
Hello. So I am working with the contractor for the ball field renovations. We've got the original bid in. I'm still working with him to get some final numbers for the change order to get that submitted. That will be submitted by Tuesday, so that will be up on the next city council meeting. Yeah, just trying to work through some stuff.
On that change order, did we come to a conclusion at the final scope of that? I know that there was some, inflation or expansion of that, and then we were trying to figure out what made the most sense.
Yeah, we're gonna do the warning tracks. Whenever we were discussed with the contractor, we're gonna skin the infields. There's a possibility on field C. There's a possibility that we're gonna have to take the entire infield grass area, just because that is it's just so far off with its elevations. Warning tracks, there's going to be a keyhole entry. It's, for lack of a better term, there was grass that was missing in front of the pitcher's mound on field A. So to try to alleviate that, we're just going to cut the rest of the grass out and have like a little walk-up area. So that's going to hopefully save us money instead of having to resod that.
Are the softball fields also in the renovations for ball fields, or just the baseball fields?
The softball fields are not. It is just Windjammer Park. My crew has been working over at Volunteer, Field 1, 2, which ones we don't technically own, and Field 3, the one that we do own. We've been out there as well, mowing and trying to reduce lips.
I just wanted to say thank you, because I've seen you out there, and I'm a softball coach. So
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
What's the timeline on the contractor working currently?
The contractor working is I believe I would have to get back to you on that. The estimated increase for days, I believe, is another week and a half. So that would put it at 2.5 weeks, but I'd have to, that's not firm.
Are you talking about before the season starts or after the season?
It would be after the season starts.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, thanks, Brandon.
So I will just add to that, we talked a little bit about the softball fields with council at the workshop, just to give them a heads up that we were bringing this item to them for approval. A little bit of background on this. So the Little League had been working with the department before the creation of the new Parks and Recreation Department on improvements to the fields. When the new park department was created about a year ago, Tim with Little League came and asked us if we would invest in some renovation of the fields with a new product, Diamond Dust. He gave us, he said the quote was, just under $40,000. Said that's definitely something that we could do. Asked them if they would be willing to pitch in with that. They said they could minimally for maybe a couple $1,000s. When we went and started getting quotes around it, it was about double that price, $80,000 to $90,000, just for the infield part. We went after a local park maintenance grant to do some of the other improvements, like the warning tracks and the fences and the dugouts and things like that. We ended up not getting that grant, and so some of those, I guess what you could consider like phase 2 items, were added into the scope of this coming out of the Windjammer funds. So this has increased the cost of it. We had a meeting recently with the Little League. They really wanted to get some of those additional items for improvements into the field. So the amount that we're bringing to council next week is Brandon's going to talk to me about it. But it's about 4 times as much as what was originally brought. So definitely needed, right? It's those fields have been needing to be renovated for a long time, and if you if you go around with my kids in the Little League, and we go around to the other ball fields around the island, and when you do, you kind of cringe, like, man, our fields are really bad. So it's definitely something that's needed. This is a pretty good chunk coming out of the Windjammer funds, though. I mean, it's going to be 15% of that. So the other part of it is that, we've heard comment about the softball fields and some of the other fields, right? And there are a lot of needs. There's some complications there with, 2/3 of those fields don't belong to us, and we can't do renovation projects on them. We don't have current agreements with the school district for any of the fields. They did not want to redo the lease agreement for the Fort Nugent fields, because they are hoping to put in a school at that point. That agreement does have the caveat in there for the terms that if it's not renewed, it just goes to a month-to-month, so it makes it easy for them to get out of it. The other fields that had not been renewed as well since 2021 or 2020, they don't have that caveat, so they don't exist. So we don't have a current agreement. We're just maintaining their fields out of the goodness of our heart. But the question does come of what is the city's viewpoint of maintaining the school district's fields? Obviously, it's a great cost benefit to them for us to do that. The fees that we get through rental of those fields don't cover our maintenance costs. So it really is a subsidy to the school district for the benefit of the leagues. The fields are, used by the public, but pretty rarely. Mostly it's for organized play by the leagues. So I do feel that the leagues are a great public good. I think there just needs to be probably some discussion on the city's side of does that public good qualify for subsidy of public funds to help maintain those for the school district? Or, should there be other discussion with the school district on the future of how those are maintained, especially when it comes to large, not just things like, preventive maintenance, mowing, and taking care of the occasional vandalism. Not occasional, that happens actually quite frequently. But larger renovation projects, right? Who really has the financial responsibility for that?
Okay.
I would ask, just on this item, since we have it as an action item, for a motion, And I'm sorry we don't have the total amount. The last quoted was like 168. But as far as the project goes, a recommendation to council on approving the renovations of the ball fields or not.
I'm kind of uncomfortable approving something without seeing the financials. I don't want to approve something now with an idea in my head only for Brandon to go back and crunch the numbers and get the math. And now we find it's either one way or the other. And now we've sent something upstream without knowledge. I mean, I certainly don't want city council to be surprised by something that we've done or look fiscally irresponsible on our end and thus erode any trust that we've built. I don't know. I don't typically approve purchase orders or anything in my business without knowing what I'm spending, and I certainly don't operate business that way. I might be alone on that, though.
All right, so what Brandon's telling me is that the warning track material, they're not able to get that material, so they're using the same as infield?
We've been unable to get a price for the warning track material. So that's what I'm trying to still work through. So my contractor has used the warning or the Diamond Dust 4-in-1 product for the infield itself as the warning track price. That has come back at over $100,000, which is not the correct price, but that's the number that he put in there. I'm still trying to work to get a real price for that material.
Is there any way that still functions within the bylaws that we can make them do an electronic or something once we actually have real numbers to do this rather than have to wait for another meeting, or just it has to go straight to council? I don't know. It makes me nervous to send anything to somebody without seeing real dollars.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'm hearing this for the first time. If that really is going to add on another $100,000, I think we either need to have a discussion with Little League about making that part of a second phase. But I would imagine council's going to have a hard time swallowing that number. So there probably needs to be some modification of the scope. So I guess hearing that, I'd probably recommend holding on it.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think also it might be judicious to look at this both in phases and options. Let's give city council sort of some options and what they might want to buy in regards to this. Is there either scope or quality material or something that lets city council and Little League still get win, but there might be different levels of win and might be different phases to a global win for down there, if that makes sense. Because this project is getting pretty wild the longer we've talked about it.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think I would probably reach out to the contractor to see if we can get a a la carte line item and present those options to council, and then let them at their pleasure pick and choose, okay, we're willing to spend this amount of money on the renovations. Anything further, maybe as part of a second phase.
I think it might also, if we're going to do sort of a menu, we might also want to highlight the other stuff that's down there that maybe city council needs a reminder of that's in rough shape. You know, we have dugouts, we have fencing issues, we have a lot of stuff down there. We've talked in the past about security and some different things that way. Just so that they know that there might only be buying the appetizer of this, 7-course meal at this point, rather than thinking that they're solving a bigger problem, or, and then having it get shuffled to the back only for this to come back up again and feeling like we just had a spend on this and now we're asking for more spends again because we have, safety issues. I mean, it's rough down there.
Yeah. And keep in mind that within frame that within, this is one of several fields that really need renovations, right? So we have a lot of needs. We need to prioritize that. This is low-hanging fruit because we do have a funded project at Windjammer Park. Because these fields are Windjammer, it makes sense that we can pull from those funds to do these improvements. We don't have any such funding the sports fields project, and there is one, a designated sports fields project, is unfunded. So that makes it easy to access those funds for this project, but we do have others, and we need to figure out how are we going to fund that, and that's going to be something that council will have to make a decision on.
Yeah, we've also made mention that we need to revisit our agreements with the sports leagues, and I think when we do put a project to city council, remind them also that that is coming, because fiscally these agreements make no sense. And if we're going to lay out something, especially from the Windjammer Fund, and most people realize that the baseball fields are part of Windjammer sort of after the fact, they're now thinking of all the stuff that happens sort of west of Bailey's Park, west of the sewage treatment plant. I think we just need to make sure that we have some of that going on to be really clear on this.
So at this point, we're just kind of putting this on hold? Is that the plan?
I think so, but I'm one of many here, so.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Brian, do you want to put this on the next meeting? We can revisit.
Is this still going to council?
I mean, it's slated to, but it's not, it can be removed.
Yeah, we'll put it on the next meeting. It's slated to be on the next council agenda, but I don't know if it will be. We might end up moving it. So yeah, we'll bring this back to you.
We'll be meeting before the next council meeting, though, with our change of time, right? Won't we? First Monday, oh, no, because you're toward, yeah, it's next week. So it was scheduled for next week. I was thinking May. I apologize.
So obviously I can't speak for all of council, but I'll speak for myself. The first phase of the project that was presented, or the initial cost estimate that was presented, would address the major safety concerns. And that's, if that does end up getting presented to council, that's the one that I personally am looking to support. The additional projects, to me, has got to go phase 2. I mean, we've requested grant funding, and if we do get that grant funding, then it allows for us to do that phase 2, address some of those other concerns that you brought up, Eric. But anything above the 168,000 that was initially presented, or that area, it's going to be hard for me personally to swallow, to say, yeah, we're going to take that much out of the Windjammer Park Fund, because we do have a number of different issues that we have to address down at Windjammer. So I will most likely be supportive of the phase 1 approach, and make it a phased approach, but to do all at once is too big of a bite to take, I think. So.
Yeah, and even the 168,000, I mean, that's a 400% increase, I think, from the original sort of what was brought to the table in the initial proposal from Little League. I mean, 40,000, so this is already a real big bite out of it. This feels like a couple of phases just based on initial estimates that came to, so it's already a really big ask, but we have to get safety down there. We can't keep offering programs to kids that are putting them in the way of rolled ankles and busted faces and broken noses and all the stuff that spoils sport for a lot of kids. One ground ball off a terrible hop because we have terrible fields to the face and a broken nose, that kid's not going to want to play baseball anymore. Most of them aren't, unless they had older brothers who already did it to them enough times they don't care. But we can't bank on that as our field maintenance plan.
Okay, so the plan is then to hold off on this and discuss it at our next meeting, correct? Okay, so let's move on to item D, subcommittee updates. Do you guys want to go first?
I think Tom.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
The majority of our time is spent on pickleball, conference call with RWD, population. I can't believe it's feeling very comfortable and confident in this qualification. Sorry about that. So anyway, the majority of our time was spent on the pickleball project and the design, which Brian addresses almost completely in his letter, the 26th of March, so I'm sure we'll get to that. There was little conversation about the inclusive playground and Windjammer Park priorities, both of which been superseded with more information since then. So, and again, a little bit of discussion on the ball field maintenance. So there's really nothing to report that we haven't already addressed today or will be addressing today.
What's the name of your committee?
Pardon me?
What committee is this?
This is the subcommittee for facilities.
Was there any comments or questions? Okay. For the Playgrounds and Programs Subcommittee, the main thing that we went over was the accessible playground, and we had a Zoom meeting with Danielle Patterson with All Play, and talked a little bit about what that looks like with installation and equipment. Brian presented on March 27th at the City Council workshop, and we got a lot of positive feedback from City Council. And then Wendy Horn, our grants administrator, presented to the City Council meeting the following week, and so she will be moving forward with applying for grants for that project. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Any further comments, questions? Okay. All right, so then we'll move on to the Parks and Rec Director.
First of all, welcome to the new commissioners. Glad to have you on, Vicky. And okay, you're going to have to help me with how you pronounce it. Stefania? Stefania, is that right? Okay. Awesome. We have an amazing commission here. They have ramped up quite a bit since we came in, and I started throwing all kinds of stuff at them. Enough that we decided to break off little special work committees. We have. Let's see, we have Tom, Eric, and Shane on a sports facilities committee, and Carrie and Kate currently on our programs committee. They also are working with the playgrounds as well. These committees came out of a process where we had several workshop sessions. When the department was new and I was new, I came in a little over a year ago. And we went through all the priorities, just trying to kind of organize everything from what was a little bit scattered. And from those, we kind of developed some goals and work tasks that we really wanted to accomplish in the next year, and divided them out into basically what's kind of turned into sort of a park side and a recreation side, I guess. This has been great. It helps us to kind of have some good conversation that we, a little more back and forth than we would have in this kind of a setting format, and do some planning, some site visits, really kind of help educate the commissioners. So when we have very complex discussion items for recommendation with council, they're well informed for those. We try to keep it under a quorum. There's no formal actions that are done in these meetings. These are mostly just informative and kind of planning and brainstorming and all that kind of great stuff. We could add one more person onto our programs committee if one of you would like to join that. It's possible we could even create a third committee, we'll see, but not that I'm looking forward to more set meetings, but definitely if one of you would like to help out. Right now, the big focus is, like Carrie said, on the inclusive playground, but also we have our new recreation division that was recently created. Craig over here at the end is our new recreation coordinator. He's only been here for a couple weeks, and but we'll be ramping up recreation program for us. So that's also a major focus for us as well. I'll just make note that last week there was a nice article about the inclusive playground in the Whitby Times, and thanks, Carrie, for adding some quotes for that. I had a discussion with Dave Kuhl in Development Services about that agenda item regarding the Parks Code, and got some clarification on it. So it's not Parks Code, it's actually a revision they're looking to for the general provisions, that's Title I, and specifically looking at 1.30.01 in the municipal code. It relates to the sale and exchange of public property. And I'm going to hand you out the ordinance specifically related to that. Oh, thanks, Liz. Yeah. So you can look at it. I'll send this over to Kim. I already have an email here with the public comments that I shared and that. On that note, yes, we will start putting together packets for you guys with this stuff so you can kind of look at it before the meetings. I was out on vacation last week, which was very nice for spring break. Okay, if everyone has that in front, did we get one for everyone?
So yeah, but is that a separate one?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay, so specifically this one, you'll see kind of at the beginning there, at the end of the paragraph as part of the code, if you go past the ordinance, it says no real property of the city shall be sold, leased, released, leased, demised, traded, exchanged, or otherwise disposed of unless the same is authorized by city council after public hearing. Now there's a exception to that was done as part of this ordinance, which was to protect parkland. Well, no, actually, let me take that back. The ordinance was done back in a long time ago. This was a revision. What you have before you is a revision that the city did back in, I think, 2015. I believe it was done in anticipation of the clean water facility in order to do that. And so it exempts public work type activities and utilities and things like that from the section here that you read. Developed city park property shall not be disposed of in any manner without citizen approval in an election, except as provided in section 2 of this section. And so that's the utility exemption, right? So, so we have several development projects. Some of them will impact or have an exchange of land with public parks. That requires an election and approval by the citizens. I think that's an important protection. You see that in most cities that, and it's usually where like any public property that's used for a public purpose. So it's usually a little more general. This one's specific for developed parks. I'd like to see what that's defined as. I imagine, a place like, Fred Marsh, is that a developed park or is that open space? Is there a difference there versus like Windjammer? Another example would be Harbor Heights. It's undeveloped parkland. I don't know if that would be defined as a developed park or not. It says specifically developed city park. So understanding what that is. But what they're looking at is possibly bringing a revision to council that would change this from election to approval by council. I think they are a couple things with this. So there's a couple options if the city wanted to have more flexibility in doing a land swap with a developed park like the Hallam-Ramley Park. So one would be to hold an election to determine the ability of the city to swap the land. The election cycle would likely put that into August or November if they wanted to do it this year. That might be difficult to do. Another option would be there are opportunities to redesign, specifically with this project, that would resolve any need for land swapping. They could also do a code amendment to change the requirements. There's pros and cons with doing that, right? So it gives the city a little more flexibility and control with how we use and develop city property, which is important for economic development, especially as we're looking at redevelopment of the central development area, the downtown area. We want to be able to remove as many barriers to success for economic development in our city as we can. We also want to make sure that we are thoroughly thinking about use of those spaces. So not necessarily for any kind of action item, just to put on your radar that they're going to have bring this to council workshop on April 24th. if you'd like to be there for that discussion to get more information on what they're looking at with these code revisions. They're not requiring any input at this point from the Parks and Recreation Commission, but something you just need to be aware of. Let's see, we have already talked about the school district lease agreements, so I've been pushing for a while now to have the administration get with the school district to have some discussions. The school district superintendent has talked with me a couple times, mostly just in our conversations with their support of some of our grant requests, has mentioned, yeah, we really need to get together and talk about future capital planning with what they're thinking of for future development of schools and how that might affect different parks and things like that. So they definitely want to have those meetings. We've been waiting on them to reach out to schedule those, and hopefully we will have those soon. The angel statue, so Richard Dash and Sculptures Northwest has decided that they do want to stay with the reconfigured base, which does require it to go through a revision of the permitting. It looks like we might be able to modify the permits without it going through the whole process. So what looked like it'd be an additional 4 months may not be that long. It will affect the timing a little bit. We really don't have any time constraints. We just have some blackout dates around Hydros for Heroes week. And then our relocation of the Flagstaff to the Veterans Memorial Park. So as I get more information, I'll keep you guys updated on that. Liz has been helping me out with scheduling the base visit. They are going through their budgeting process right now, and it turns out this month is not going to be a great month for them. So we'll go and try and, I think, tentatively look at next month for that site visit. I also reached out to Centralia to schedule a site visit day with them, and we'll look at that in the next few months. I'd like to do that before we jump into the feasibility study for the recreation center. Let's see, and then working with Chris on a good time to do a site visit at the marina. They're a little busy right now as they're getting ready for their busy season and the electrical issues that we're scrambling to get fixed there right now. But we'll get that scheduled here soon. Arbor Day planning. We have, actually, I'll combine that with Holland Happening. I'll turn it over to Liz for a couple updates with that.
If you have saved the little site map of the Arbor Day, if
Sure.
you want to pull it up. If
Yeah, I
not,
can do
it's
it.
not a big deal,
I feel like I get to talk about the most fun things all the time. So Liz Lang, Recreation Manager, and this month is definitely the month of events. I mean, every month has them, but this month we have a lot going on, so we're super excited. The Arbor Day is April 26th, and we'll be right next door to the center with the Oak Harbor Elementary. And Brian's pulling up, he's going to pull up kind of the site plan so we can just kind of show you what the plan of that day is. But it does start, we're looking to start about noon, and the biggest takeaway for this group would be if you have any interest in being there in this capacity, we have some specific volunteer slots and jobs, and we'll email that out. But also, if you can't commit to a certain time, you are more than welcome to come and to witness it and see it and say hi to those kids. So we met with Principal Merritt, the principal of Oak Harbor Elementary School, with our City Parks and Rec staff to plan out that day event. And as you can see where that little bell is, that's where they line up. The kids will all line up there before heading over to the field. And then as you can see, there's some really great activities planned out. We have a story time and a tree planting, tree climbing, and the arborist demonstration, the archaeological show and tell with native artifacts, and then field games and a little take-home activity. And so you can kind of, so I think on this one we've changed things a little bit, but you can see in the general area of where we'll be. And then at the very end, like we did last year, we'll do a big aerial photo with the drone of all of the kids participating in it there. And this is something for the whole school, which is super exciting. So kindergarten through fourth grade, and they'll go around in their class or in their grade school there. And so we do have, if anybody's interested in volunteering, kind of the main positions there that we're looking for. We're looking for help with the games. We'll have some field games going on that Craig is organizing, which is fabulous. And also, there's an area down at the end where they cross the road to come over, and where there's some restrooms. If you scroll down, I don't know if that goes that far down, just boop, right there at the end. And we could definitely use some adult supervision of kind of just being in that general area, and if kids are going over to the restrooms that are in the softball field lower down there and back. So we will send out an email with some specific times that if you're interested in participating, that would be wonderful. And as Brian has already mentioned, they will also be doing a contest to name the Harbor Heights area as well.
So like with just like last year, each of the classes are doing their own little competition to designate a nomination. We will announce all those nominations.
There we go. We will announce all the nominations from each of the classes at the event, and then we will bring those nominations to you. And I'll go over the park naming policies that are approved by the city for designating parklands, and you guys can have a discussion and choose a winner. We'll then invite that class to City Council to present to them their winning nomination for the name of the Harbor Heights property, for council to formally adopt that and designate that parkland, and we'll get some photo ops. Usually kids do pictures of the park, why they named it that, and then we'll probably invite them also to the ribbon cutting when we do the trail system as well. So.
Perfect. So anything else about Arbor Day? Any questions about Arbor Day before we move on to the next? Okay, so you could. So you could, if you wanted, spend the whole weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with these lovely faces. The opportunity is there because the next day is Holland Happening. And so as you'll see, I did a little printout for you here. This kind of goes down the schedule. So Saturday is the big day with both the parade and our Parks and Recreation Department is sponsoring and running the Kids Corner. And so the Kids Corner setup will start in the morning about 9 o'clock. We're not anticipating that being too much. And then meanwhile, so yes, there are several parts going to this. We're running the Kids Corner, we're participating in the parade, and then our friends at the Art Commission is having a booth down by the Stumbling Ducklings in front of Sweet Rice Thai to do a naming of those ducks and some community outreach for their Arts Commission art plan. And so you'll see all of those pieces kind of outlined here for you. This is kind of just the master plan of everything, but where we'd really love to have you join us is definitely in the parade, and if you have interest in helping at the Kids Corner, then that's also an opportunity for you as well. So the parade staging is at 9:30 a.m. The parade starts at 11, and we will be near the front there. We met with the chamber employees. We met with Cheryl, their event coordinator, who is strategically placing us at the front so that we can then be finished first and get back to start the kids booth. All of the other booths open at 11. They want their booths open at 11. She said we can start our kids booth at noon because she knows we'll be in the parade. And not only will we be in near the front of the parade, but she's also putting kind of all the city vehicles together. I believe that we also have some city vehicles with some of our city council members in the parade as well. And so you, your family, your friends, if anybody wants to walk in the parade with us, they're more than welcome to. Our plan is we have our new bus, our 14-passenger bus that we use for our recreation programming. Our plan is to have that wrapped with City of Oak Harbor Parks and Recreation on it. We're going to do some decorating. The chamber really wants everybody to do as much Dutch theme, Holland, Netherlands theme as possible. And so we'll look at at decorating the bus, maybe some big tulip cutouts, or however creative we can get. And we'll have music, a bubble machine. We should have our new activity guides hot off the press that week that we can be handing out, and or maybe a simple flyer too if people are interested in getting it virtually. And then of course have some candy and some swag to pass out. So at our kids corner, they said to plan for approximately 1,000 kids coming through in those 2 days' times. And so our goal is to have about 5 to 6 activities, and we're realizing not all of them will be Dutch themed. Some of the Dutch themed games aren't so appropriate, like a nail attached to the end of a string around your waist. We learned a lot of fun things about it. But we have identified a few really great themed activities. The Delft Square, so if you look on the back of your page right here, here's some examples of what that Delft artwork looks like that you really see and think about Holland when you see that. This one is specifically kids craft on paper plate, and then also some tissue tulips, so some little art projects that kids can just walk up to, and the stuff will be there and they can kind of do on their own. We have some excitement and requests for maybe doing the little tattoos. We can get some custom ones made of kind of that folk art flower that you associate with Dutch art as well. And then we want to also have some kind of more physical activities, so maybe some yard games or beanbag tosses. So this is also where if you guys have any really fun ideas for some little activities that kids can come and go from in droves or not. We're not really quite sure what to anticipate, as this is our first time, but we're definitely open to those ideas. We've got a lot of ideas, but if there's something that you think, oh man, this could really work in this space. And speaking of space, the little map is right there. So Pioneer Street is going to be closed for the Holland Happening street fair on both of those days, and their plan is to have, I believe all their food vendors are going to be down near the Whidbey coffee end of Pioneer Street, and then their vendors are going to run all the way down to, they're anticipating right here on the corner of Dock Street and Pioneer, you have the mermaid statue. That's where they do their Klompen racing. And then they visualize us being that other anchor, the kids' corner at the other end. So there's something at each end to drive people to walk the whole length of their event, right? And so I've kind of outlined in red where they anticipate us being. And so we'll have some pop-up tents in case the weather is not as friendly as it was for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And we'll plan to be able to have things that can be done underneath the tent, whatever the weather is right there, underneath the several tents. So, let's see. It's going to be a great event, and if anyone's interested, again, we'll send an email out and with some times and interests, but definitely if there's something specific that you would like to help with, feel free to reach out to myself or to Craig. Any questions about Holland Happening? Awesome.
And then lastly, just a quick update on the pickleball courts.
So the pickleball courts, I called in for locates last week. So they are located. We've got scheduled for Wednesday, 1 p.m. Approximately is whenever the geotech that's working with RWD land or the consultant RWD, their geotech guy is going to start South Whidbey. We're going to combine geotech dig for South Whidbey and us so that we can save some money on the geotech company. So we're planning ready to go for 1 p.m. on Wednesday for the test pit dig.
Do we have the sites flagged where they're going to dig the pits?
They're marked. They're painted. Yep.
Okay, because I have the disc golf club has leagues going on out there, so I just need to make adjustments.
Yeah, they're painted.
We'll talk after, and you can tell me what's.
I'm hoping to dig out the text should be in there at the depth that they want to get their soil samples, and we'll fill those holes back in. There should be nothing.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, any other questions or comments on that? Okay. We'll move on to item 6, member comments. Did anyone have any comments or items that they wanted to bring up?
One of the things I think would be helpful is us working together somehow to produce information from the subcommittees and from the other stuff that's going on in Parks and Rec adjacent to get to the members. I sometimes find myself surprised by information that I see being disseminated and then having to pivot on the fly, or when I'm asked about it in public, when I'm out and about, wing it, so to speak, make it up as I go. I think it would be very helpful to see, I don't know, a better compendium or something of this information. In addition, I think also finding something that we can have that's tangible to help us better navigate or to the complex relationships of some of these parks where there is school district overlap, what can and can't be done. And then just as for education as well, when we're brainstorming and or having people come to us with their ideas, which happens to me a lot about things that could or couldn't be done. I don't know how to answer them as far as how these projects may or may not get funded, what we would be thinking about, like general rules of thumb for where we need to seek grants, what, to be more solution focused, I suppose, in responding to people and giving them a way to, rather than simply voice a complaint or a concern, but also to be proactive and looking for ways that they can go out and do some legwork for their passion projects to show what may or may not be available. So when they come to bring comments, they're more solution focused than they are complaining, if that makes sense. Just empowering more people to get involved in the community, because there's a lot of passion around what we're doing, but also often I feel ill-equipped without having a direct conversation with Brian or someone else, which is always, everybody's busy, to give them answers to then help them take their passion to the next level of actually being focused on offering something rather than simply requesting more from an already pretty burdened staff. Does that make sense?
As far as the subcommittee updates, is that something that we could include in the meeting packet, Mikhail?
Information packet,
So, like, the packets for our meeting, could we maybe get, like, their subcommittee, get something in there, ours, throw something in the packet ahead of time so that we're kind of prepared for what we're going to talk about?
yeah, that,
Okay.
just, so you know, the chairman, Stuckey brought this, question to me. Right now, we just do like word agenda packets, but we are working to give you PDF backup information. And we have a new software program that will be able to do that. So that information will just have to be put in, our semester subcommittee or however, when I get sent, we can just have that on board.
I'll also add, because we're constrained by time, we get you guys once a month for a couple hours. There's no way to address or just, kind of feed you by fire hydrant all the things that the department's doing. But we are working on a project update sheet that kind of tracks the status of all the different projects we're working on. I think will help a lot with understanding, okay, where we are, where we're at with, all the various projects that the department's working on. So, yeah, and then we can get you guys whatever information you want ahead of time within a reasonable scope of what you want to see. Some things are relevant for you for action items that we want you to be able to advise council on. I mean, the whole purpose of your commission really is not so much for us as it is to give a recommendation to council, who, in a similar sense, has to digest and understand information in a very brief time about a week, they get, their packet in order to make an informed decision that's going to, impact the lives of everyone in the community. That's a very tough job, and you guys have kind of a similar situation, right? So they rely on you to work with the departments to work through these issues. And in similar ways that they have workshops to kind of get into the meat of these, we have our committee meetings now to do that as well. So whatever's helpful to you to get that information to better understand it, we can work with you on that.
Yeah, I think I'm finding that the more time-consuming part of this volunteer opportunity is actually community relations. Once people find out, rather than sending in member comments, they talk to me, whether that's my neighbors or the people that are involved in similar things that my kids are or whatever. And so I find myself often in a sales position, absorbing complaints of the past, right? And then trying to redirect towards the positive, because we know a lot of kind of the situation that's been around and the mood that's been around parks, for long-term residents. And I think having more of that information allows me to find those spots that kind of ease their pain and then redirect them. So, and it might just be very particular to me, but I find myself sometimes just ill-equipped to comment on the things that I'm not intimately working on, and I would like to be able to redirect better so that we can continue to change the mood and attitude and atmosphere around parks from disinterest to negativity to positivity and excitement, because we all get to experience that intimately and see the work that you all are doing as staff, and it's super exciting, and there's a lot going on. But because there's a lot going on, sometimes it's hard to always know is enough to, I think, do that part of that job well, which will then help, I think, me give better recommendation to council as well, simply because they're another step removed, right? And they have even more to handle. So again, I don't want to be needy, but I want to be a little needy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is a paradigm shift with the community now that we have this new park and recreation department, and we're working on all this stuff, and I hear that a lot when I meet with people as well of, we've been trying to get this done I understand that, but it's kind of different situation now, and here's all the amazing things that we're working on with you guys. I'm also always happy to talk with anyone in the community. I definitely would advise to be careful of when you're talking with someone, don't necessarily represent yourself as speaking for the city, especially if you're ever talking with someone for the media. You want to just forward those on to Sabrina for any quotes or comments like that.
Any other comments, questions?
I have a question. I would like to be as equally as needy and make sure that, because it is a small town, so even if you don't present, they're going to know. Everybody knows, you burp, they know what you had for breakfast. So I think the more, but also like you were saying, full transparency is a little bit dangerous sometimes, unfortunately, because it can get misconstrued and kind of twisted, which is the same thing. But I would love to be as equally as needy to have that transparency, the information to pass along, while still redirecting some of those comments and, saying, hey, this is what it's a surprise, or, we finally got there, so on and so on. So I am all for that. Whatever you need, just from me as an individual to make that happen. Sometimes I spiral with my ideas. I'm thinking, is there an app formulated? I know nothing about how to formulate an app, I'll tell you right now. But that's where my mind goes. I'm like, how can they access the comments? Because you go and you say, hey, well, you can meet with them. But, realistically, to try to schedule that is really difficult, for all of us, honestly. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in and say I'm as equally needy. And whatever you need for me to make that work, I'm here for it. Famous last words.
Thank you. I think it's important that we start looking at adding amenities to some of our existing parks. As the pickleball conversation has come up and as this inclusive playground has come up, we've talked about putting them in places where we have amenities. Well, really, we have 2 parks. We have Windjammer and we have Fort Nugent that have restrooms. unless everything is going to go in the future in those two parks, which obviously is not going to work, we have to start looking at adding amenities to some of our existing parks, and so, perhaps future grants could look towards adding restrooms to some of the parks that we have. So we do have that ability in the future to build out some of our existing parks. Otherwise, we're just cramming everything into two, and that's just not going to work. We're going to be over top of each other. And so I think from this commission, it's something that we should have future discussions about and take a look at doing that. So.
And that probably gets back to the master plan, so we can target those parks and all of that. One other comment I had is how we handle the creation or the way in which pocket parks have come on. A lot of them have been, HOA related or other things that have been required as spaces with development, and we're going to see more development. We know that we have development in process off of Southwest 24th. There's going to be other areas, and they're going to have some of those same requirements, probably based on the size. Figuring out how we're going to handle those. We're already overburdened with pocket parks, and I think we need to make sure that as these HOAs either meet or don't meet, how we take these things on. I'm concerned about that because I see them kind of being the sneaky ways in which our budget could get destroyed just simply by the nature of the safety requirements from aging parks and having to spend, thousands and tens of thousands of dollars and more sometimes simply to mitigate liability. I think we need to look at that as part of the master plan, but also just in general, and maybe stop bailing out neighborhoods and or contractors, developers on that altogether. But again, that's just my comment. I'd like to see, as part of the master plan, really some targeted work on those pocket parks, because we do need to see what amenities are we going to do? What are we really doing with these things? How are they strategically? How are they financially viable? What kind of actual quality of life do they create? And how do we acquire them? And in relation to this other stuff, how do we divest ourselves potentially of them, should the need arise, simply to make sure we're spending our resources on the actual improvements that we need to be doing to modernize our Parks and Rec situation.
Any other comments? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on to item number 7, determination of future agenda items. Do we have any? Okay.
So I'd like to, and I think maybe for the sake of our newest commissioners, maybe take another, and it doesn't have to take long, look at that plan, that master plan, and just kind of like, here's what it looked like, here's where we're at now, and just take a brief overview or review where we're at.
Well, we have to build it first. We don't have a master plan.
Well, to the degree that the things that we have decided on and where we're sitting with those, I don't know if that would be beneficial to you all or not, but.
The city
I think
actually
it'd be
does
extremely
have a
beneficial.
Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan. Is done through Development Services. Is about ready for an update. But yeah, and I can touch on some of the points that were in that plan.
Okay, any other comments or agenda items? Okay.
Hey, Carrie, I will, if I may, just add one last thing I forgot about. Maybe Liz can speak to it. So we're putting together our next activity guide, and we do have space for highlighting the commissions, as well as Parks and Recreation Commission, and want to see if we wanted to put in a message to the community from the commission. You want to talk about what Doug said?
Yes, and just before the meeting, we did decide we're going to do a group photo today, if everyone's okay with that, to have an updated photo. I know we don't have Shane, and so we're missing Shane, but we'll get a photo today to put in it. But yes, anything specific that you would want to see on a page for the Parks and Recreation Commission, and really too, we're wanting to be engaging in this activity guide, right? But and informing. So this is our way of really getting out into the community. Here's some projects that the Parks and Recreation Commission's working on, or here's how we were engaged in the community, or here's, what we do in our role, and something that just shows kind of the community what you're working towards. And so maybe if that's like a little message from Carrie or a chair or someone else, or just things that you say, yeah, let's make sure we want to highlight this, or if there's certain things that are meaningful to you, that would be really great. And it is right now we're on a pretty quick turnaround deadline, and so all of our items need to be in by the end of this week. And so if there is something, I'm happy to work on verbiage and pictures and things like that, but for vision, if you have anything, please do share.
Okay, can I think about it and email you?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. And this
All
is
right.
to just anyone, and it doesn't necessarily have to fall on you, Carrie, if if that's not the vision of having that kind of letter,
Sure.
but.
Yeah, if there's anything that you guys want to see, please email me and let me know. You said by the end of the week. Okay.
Correct, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question about that guide. Are there resources in the activity guide as well, like Opportunity Council, Compass Health, things like that?
No, it's specific to our City of Oak Harbor Parks and Recreation, and so there aren't any outside entities involved in it at this time. So as listing, and so is your question more of just adding resources, like if you need housing, go here, that kind of thing?
Not necessarily housing, but maybe an extra funding source for if they want to play baseball, basketball, soccer. So sometimes Opportunity Council or different organizations can help with sponsorships for the kids. And then a lot of times the activities are for mental health purposes. Even the skate park is something they go to kind of stay sober, is what Rebecca White shared. So something along those lines of you have this, but you can also have this, and they can go hand in hand.
So I like that. Maybe we can chat too about Opportunity Council, because we are building a lot of community connections with other organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters through their Dino program, which will, a lot of our activities will be Dino approved, so kids can participate in them at no cost. And so those types of things will be in there. Same with our partnership with WIAC, Whidbey Island Arts Council. So any of the entities or organizations that we have those partnerships with, we'll highlight. And so if there's ones that we don't have that we should learn about, and it sounds like Opportunity Council was one, and I do have a great working relationship with them, but haven't ever connected on that topic. And so that's really good to know. So anything else like that, yes, we'd definitely love to work with them and include. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? All right, are we ready to adjourn then? Okay, let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting.